Welcome back to Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Nicole Stewart, the Executive Director of Boston CASA, a nonprofit that trains and supports community volunteers to serve as court-appointed special advocates for children who have suffered from abuse and neglect. With more than 25 years of combined experience in school administration and executive leadership in nonprofits, Nicole has dedicated her career to positively impacting the lives of vulnerable children. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Ashley, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the opportunity of sharing the incredible work of our court-appointed special advocate volunteers.
Absolutely. I'd love to have you start off by sharing more about who you are and what you're doing at Boston CASA.
Sure. Where do I begin? Let's see. So, I've been at Boston Casa for 4 years. It's a little over 4 years. But before signing on with Boston Casa, as you had mentioned, I have more than um, I sound so old, but more than 30 years of experience in this industry. But for more than a decade, I've been in executive leadership in nonprofits, including, starting my own nonprofit, Possibilities Here Incorporated. And that nonprofit was to provide leadership development for girls between the ages of 16 and 22 who experience foster care. But early on in my career, for probably almost 20 years, I was in educational leadership. But I think most notably, and the most significant part of my career path is the observation that I've dedicated, more than 3 decades now to serving disadvantaged children and communities. And, ultimately, that is what has really led me to Boston CASA. It's just how I grew up, which has had such a significant impact on my career choices.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. So, Nicole, since you've joined Boston CASA, I'm sure you've done many wonderful things. And so I'd love to hear A, what drew you to the nonprofit, and B, what you've been able to help lead throughout that time since joining.
Absolutely. So when I first started Boston Casa, we were serving less than 15% of the total number of eligible children who we could serve. So, and let me back up and say that Boston Casa, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And so we train, we recruit, we support community-based volunteers. These are everyday people who provide a voice to children in the court system. Most of them are in foster care. I would say 50% of the children that we serve are in the foster care system. But what our volunteers do is that they really give kids the opportunity to thrive in a stable environment. So when I started at Boston CASA, we were serving, again, just under 15% of the total number of eligible children. And my goal was to be able to serve more. Um, I grew up in the foster care system, and so the mission of Boston CASA, they're not just words on a piece of paper, but these are experiences that I have lived, and I really understand firsthand what it means to have a stable, consistent adult in my life to make a difference. And so I wanted to ensure that we provided more children with the same kinds of opportunities. And so I reached out to community action partners, that's CAP, and they are pro bono consultants out of Harvard Business School and Kennedy School. And they work with us on a strategic growth plan. And I wanted to know how we could scale up and serve more children. And what we did over the course of 10 months is developed a 5-year strategic plan to triple the number of children that we were serving and double our budget. And
Wow.
so we are now in year three, finishing year three of our growth plan. And I am so proud to say that each year we have exceeded our growth goals, both in fundraising and in children served. So we are serving nearly 30% of all eligible children in Suffolk and Middlesex counties. We have 2 more years to go. I am extremely confident, Ashley, that we are going to not just reach but exceed our goals. and provide more children with the life-changing opportunity of having a CASA by their side.
I love that. And I think it's really amazing how you took your own experience to apply it to Boston Casa. And I imagine it's been incredibly beneficial to have both ends of the spectrum for experience of having gone through this yourself when you were younger and now being able to bring your leadership and professional experience to the organization as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I one of my foster parents, in fact, she's the only person that I ever called mom, but she had gotten me at a really, really critical stage in my life at 5 years old. And so I lived with her from 5 until I was around 12. But she really did instill in me the value of education and hard work, and that really anything is possible. And so, you know, even for my nonprofit years later, you know, I named it Possibilities Here. And so I think it's just, you know, our life, our paths, you know, how we grew up, it really does have such a significant influence in the choices of our lives and the trajectory of our lives. So I try to make sure that from my staff, you know, that that carries over, that same mindset, you know, trickles down, and my staff feel that way, and our amazing volunteers. The way that they reach children is just incredible. And really, they do show them that anything is possible.
Definitely. Yeah. And so you just mentioned that you're wrapping up the third year, getting ready to start the fourth. And so I'd love to hear what's on the radar for Boston Casa for the remainder of 2026 and even going into 2027. If there is any exciting developments or projects that you're working on that you're able to share with us.
Yeah, so there's always a lot of exciting things happening at Boston Casa. Um, we're actually wrapping up our fiscal year 2026. So our fiscal year is from October 1st to September 30th. So we're finishing up. We have one more fundraiser, and that is our golf outing. This is our fourth annual golf outing, which is held at Franklin Park, the William J. Devine golf course, which I grew up in Boston, so we call it Franklin Park. But it's right in the heart of Dorchester, a beautiful golf course. So that's our final fundraiser of the year. We just finished up a training in the summer. Our summer training was in June. We were supposed to have, I think it was 15. This is our smaller training. So when I first started, we had two trainings. And then
Mhm.
because of our growth, we created a summer training so that we would have three trainings throughout the year. And next year, because we are growing so rapidly, we're looking at having four trainings for the
Wow.
year. So this past summer, the summer training was supposed to be a smaller training because some of it is virtual. It's just a little bit different than our regular trainings because it's shorter. We were supposed to cap it at about 15, 20, and we had over 30. So that is absolutely incredible. And then we have our next upcoming training in the fall, which we are going to begin at the end of August. And I think we have close to 40 people. So our trainings are getting larger. The interest is becoming stronger from our community who want to, you know, do something significant that matters. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to be able to get involved and to help to shape the lives of our young people and give them an opportunity like us, you know, to be able
Yeah.
to go to college and to have a chance to succeed in life.
Absolutely. And Boston Casa has achieved amazing growth in only a few years, which is so awesome to hear about. And so I'd love to pick more about your brain with that in terms of building a nonprofit and leading a nonprofit. We have a lot of people in our audience who have that interest, whether they want to start a nonprofit on the side or whether they want to eventually make it their full-time career. And as someone like yourself who has extensive experience in leading and building nonprofits, I'd love to hear what you've learned along the way and any advice you could give to someone who's just starting out.
Absolutely. It's mission-driven work is just it's very meaningful. I'm blessed, I feel, to for the first time in my life at Boston CASA, to have both my passion and purpose, I think so nicely aligned, almost perfectly aligned.
Mhm.
But if you look at my career path, as I mentioned earlier, I've always done what I've been passionate about doing, which is, serving young people and trying to create opportunities for disadvantaged children and communities in general.
Mhm.
So I would say, it's really important if you're leading a nonprofit um, to, as you're looking at the mission, to do some work yourself. Like how does your beliefs and your background, how does it align with the mission of that organization? Um, it's leading a nonprofit. Um, I think the work itself. We're doing, there's so many nonprofits in Boston who are doing incredible work. And, when we look at raising money, all of us have, and that's, that's like the biggest challenge, I think, with
Yeah.
nonprofits is, you're doing such meaningful work with populations who are extremely needy.
Mhm.
For leaders of nonprofits, we have to raise the money.
Mhm.
And I would say that that's one of the biggest challenges, which is why it's so important to have conviction about your mission because that conviction in you as you're talking to donors and if you have volunteers or what have you, it really does transfer,
Mhm.
to those who you're speaking to. And so raising money is one of the biggest challenges. And so to do that well, I think that you have to align yourself with the kinds of people that can support you in doing that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think as one individual, like there's only so much we can only do as one person. And so, of course, Boston Casa has grown to have a team to support you. And so I'd love to hear how that has helped to contribute to the growth as well.
Yeah, so I have every executive director is going to say they have the best staff, right? But I really do have the best staff. So, in addition to raising money, which is so critical, no margin, no mission, is having an incredible team, having a really good team, committed team to help do the work. And they're really the ones doing the work. When I think about my team at Boston CASA, they're so, oftentimes in nonprofits, people are underpaid, right? Overworked and underpaid.
Mhm.
And, because I always ask in our interviews, for example, I ask them what brings them to this work. You could be doing anything with your time. You could be making a lot more money. What drives you to want to be here. And usually everyone has a story, but part of the reason why I do that in interviews is because I really want to understand what their connection is to the work, because sometimes that will speak to, their commitment to this work over time.
Mhm.
And it also opens up the door to have a conversation, to give some reality checks sometimes
Yeah.
about how challenging the work is, and that, acknowledging up front that it doesn't pay a whole lot of money. And so most people who are doing this work, and my staff in particular, they are really committed. They will do whatever it takes to get the job done because the job is really the children,
Mhm.
and so when we're not working, when we're not giving 100%, that means on the other end of that spectrum, our kids aren't getting what they need. And so, Our kids are the center of our mission. It's what drives all of us. And so without that care, without that sensitivity, um, this just mission-driven work may not be the work for somebody. So
Yeah.
I think that commitment is just really important to understand up front from your team.
Definitely. Yeah. And on the topic of commitment in teams, I'd love to talk more about the volunteer aspect of as well. I've spoken with a few nonprofits leader before who had mentioned that that was a pain point that they have was recruiting volunteers, but then also making sure that the volunteers that were part of the organization were active and engaged and participating at the level that they needed. And so I'd love to hear what you've learned throughout that or any tips you could give to a nonprofit leader who might be listening to this episode.
You know, I don't know what it is about Boston Casa, but we don't lack volunteers or interest.
Yeah.
You know, we've been working with Teak Media just to increase our visibility as part of our growth plan. And just getting the word out there, has driven much more interest. It's like people, a lot of people want to do good stuff. And
Mhm.
so I've been really inspired, I would say, by the interest in volunteers and wanting to do work that is not, it's not really easy. It's not the kind of volunteer work that you are, and nothing's wrong with taking kids for ice cream and, doing the fun stuff. Nothing's wrong with that. But this is not always that. And
Right.
and so it's really inspiring to know that volunteers have that level of dedication and heart to want to do work that isn't really that easy, but extremely important. And I think that volunteers see the importance of the work that we're doing. And not only that, there's an authenticity, I think, and it speaks to what we just talked about with the team. They see the dedication from the staff. They see my dedication. There's a level of authenticity, I think, that draws people in, and that transfers to I believe, our success over the past few years.
Hmm.
Everyone has really bought in and bought into something that is really, really meaningful. We're trying to help kids and we're really doing it. When we said that we wanted to provide more advocates to our children, we did that. We each year we exceeded our growth goals, and the judges are giving us more referrals because they truly do see the value in the
Yeah.
work that our volunteers are doing. And I think that when volunteers can feel that sense of achievement and accomplishment, it doesn't mean that every case turns out the way that you want it to. That just isn't going to happen. But when you can say, I gave it my all, and you have, people who are listening to you, whether it's the judges, DCF workers, the staff of CASA, you know that you're making a difference, even if the outcome isn't what you necessarily, hope for it to be.
Hmm.
I think our CASAs, they get the kind of support and feedback that they need to even understand the complexities of our system, and
Yeah.
why things don't always work out the way that we hope that they do. But I'm inspired by their commitment. I think that, we just created a CASA ambassador. It's a CASA ambassador role. And so it gives CASAs who have been in this for a minute, right? Our oldest CASA is like 80.
Oh my gosh, that's
So
awesome.
I know, and she had said to us, I might be getting too old for this. So what we did was we try, but they want to stay involved, with the
Yeah.
organization. They see that we're growing, they see the difference that we're making, that they're making, and they want to continue, but perhaps they can't do it in the same capacity. And so we created this CASA Ambassador program. And what it is that we have CASAs who have been around for a little bit, and they support our capacity, right? So it also increases our, we have a small staff, so it increases our staffing capacity, where my director of volunteer engagement, they're not having to necessarily pick up the phone and call and do the check-ins and things like that, but they have a CASA peer now who is
Mhm.
calling and checking in and just having conversations with them. And then, we're able to gather information. Maybe there's something that CASAs, want us to do more of. They want us to have activities or what have you. And so, it's just another opportunity that we created for our CASAs. But yeah, I mean, I think, CASAs, when you have volunteers, it's really, really important to make sure that they are fully equipped to be able to do the work. I mean, that's
Mhm.
part of their success, right? And so we have an extremely comprehensive pre-service training before CASAs can get a case. And in addition to that pre-service training, which is about 35 hours, in addition to the pre-service training, we also have what we call in-service trainings through Boston CASA University. So these are trainings once a month that really support the work of our CASAs. So we have special presentations. It could be, someone from special education,
Mhm.
to support our CASA volunteers in understanding the laws behind special education so that they can better support, our young people who may be in special education. So we have all different kinds of topics, throughout the year for our CASAs. And then on top of that, they also receive support from our advocate supervisors, who are our professional staff, who meet with our CASAs regularly, support them with doing their court reports and presentations if they have to present. And so I think, because our CASAs feel so supported and very equipped to do what we're asking them to do, it supports their ability, one, to be able to do it and to do a good job.
Mhm.
But I also think it helps with our with retention,
Yeah.
and and also referrals, because they feel good about what they're receiving, what they're doing, and then, because a lot of our CASAs come by referral, which
Mhm.
speaks volumes to the credibility of the organization and to how our CASAs are receiving, the support and the services that they're getting, to support their work. So
Definitely.
yeah, I call them my earthly angels because they're absolutely incredible. They really are. They're the heartbeat of our organization. We have over 200 CASAs,
That's
and we are
amazing.
currently serving nearly 400 children. So every year we've had like 28% growth. And this year we had to increase our summer training because we were getting so many more referrals,
Hmm.
which is, there's good and bad in that, right? The bad is
Yeah.
that we have referrals to begin with, right? We don't want kids in the system, but the reality is that it happens, right?
Hmm.
Kids are removed from their homes for different reasons. And so the important thing is to be able to have, services that can support these young children and youth and their ability to thrive. And so I'm happy that we're able to fill that gap, and really, really delighted that the judges see the value in the work that we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And I know you mentioned that as you're getting ready to wrap up this fiscal year, that you have your golf tournament, that you've been able to add on more trainings and all this exciting stuff. But I'd love to hear what's coming up for the next fiscal year. If there's anything new that you have going on that you're able to share with us.
Yeah, so we were able to, we have to raise 20% over our 20% more in our budget every
Hmm.
year to meet our growth goals, financial growth goals. And we've exceeded that as well. I think last year it was like 25%. This year it may have been 28%. We haven't finished out the year, so we're still rounding that number out. Um, and so, part of our growth is, we're going to expand our development team. And so that's exciting for next year is that we'll have additional capacity in our development team. We received a special grant from an investment grant in order for us to be able to do this from an individual donor who happens to be a CASA
Mhm.
and said that she is really excited about our growth and wants to see us continue to succeed and do more for more children. And so she made a $450,000 investment over 3 years. And that investment is to expand our development so that we can raise the money needed to support our continued growth. So I'm excited that we'll have more capacity on our development team. My board of directors is extremely involved. They are definitely hands-on, and they're part of my motivation as well, because they're here for the calling,
Mhm.
and will do whatever it will take to help to ensure the sustainability of of the growth of our organization. And so I'm really excited about some of the new members that we've brought on, our former board members and some of the new members who are rolling on this fiscal year. Our goal is to continue to raise money
Mhm.
and to hopefully exceed that 20% growth goal this year as well. So we have our fundraising events, our standard staple gala that we do. We've been doing it. I think this will be our 15th year, I think.
Wow.
I know. So, yeah, so that'll be exciting. This year was our largest gala in terms of participants. We did some really cool different things, same location. It's I've been at the Artists for Humanities for the past, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years. And so we'll have it there again this year, and we're looking to be even bigger than we were this year.
Mhm.
And so, the board and I are looking forward to working together to see what kind of changes we can make, and just continuing to cultivate, new relationships, so that we can bring more people into the fold of this community, to support the opportunity of us serving more children.
Mhm.
So those are the primary things. We developed a nice relationship. We have a partnership with Lego, the Lego Group. And so we piloted this year the power of play. So our CASA Lego, someone from the Lego Group comes to our volunteer trainings, and our volunteers are trained and with 6 blocks of Legos. It's kind of cute to see. Adults playing,
Mhm.
we don't always have a chance to do that. So it's nice to see, this partnership evolve. And so the power of play really supports our CASA's ability to be able to use play to
Mhm.
help children to communicate their feelings, because developing trust and developing really good relationships, with our kids is so important for our CASAs to be able to do. And it's not always the easiest thing, because our kids, for good reasons, don't trust easily.
Yeah.
And so building that trust early on is really important, and finding ways to do that. So this is a tool to support our volunteers' ability to be able to develop these really important relationships.
That's incredible. So exciting to hear about all of the many wonderful things that you have going on in the upcoming year. And so, with that being said, Nicole, I'd love if you could share with our listeners where they can find yourself and Boston Casa online in case you'd like to learn more, get involved, and connect.
Absolutely. So our website is bostoncasa.org, and that's CASA, and Boston Casa is all one word. Um, all of our trainings are there, our info sessions, which is the first thing that if any of the listeners are interested in becoming a CASA, um, you can jump onto an info session there every month. But that information is also on our website. And people can feel free to reach out to me directly if you want to. My information is also on the website. My email address is under my profile, so you can feel free to reach out to me. We have, again, three, four, we will probably have four trainings this year. So if you're interested in the fall training, I think we may have limited space at this point, but you can try. I think there's one more info session before that training happens at the end of August. But yeah, so I hope that your listeners, or our listeners now, because I'm part of this too, want to get involved with an amazing organization doing really critical work for our young people and changing. This just is life-changing work,
Mhm.
and something that people can really feel good and proud about.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll make sure to include links to everything that you mentioned in the show notes. But thank you so much, Nicole, for being a guest on today's episode of Right Here in Mass.
All right, Ashley, thank you. Appreciate it.